We are inching closer and closer to the defense of the Eagles' Super Bowl championship. Preseason starts Thursday night for the Birds as they clash with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I've got 10 names for you guys, 10 Eagles that I am excited about heading into Thursday's contest. So without further ado, let's get into the names. I guess you could say that this is 1 through 10, 1 being the most I'm excited about, 10 being the least excited. But my top guy heading into Thursday's game, it's none other than Sidney Jones. Obviously coming off the Achilles injury. I've talked about him at extent throughout the offseason. We saw a little glimpse last year in Week 17, that meaningless season finale against Dallas. Saw him tackle a little bit, saw some mirroring skills, and we're going to see just a little bit more on Thursday night. I hope he gets the matchup with Antonio Brown on a couple snaps. That'd be a lot of fun. That's what I'm hoping for. My number 2 guy. So apparently right now, according to the camp reports and the beat reporters, there are 2 rookies that are really standing out, and they are Dallas Goedert and Josh Sweat. Dallas Goedert being my number 2 guy. And there are a couple of things for me that I'm going to be having my eye on with him. Not only just what he can do in the red zone. We're hearing a lot of things, and I already knew what he can provide in the red zone based on what I've studied about him. If you watched the Dallas Goedert film study that Brendan and I did, we talked extensively about how he can just box people out in the red zone. He's got the leaping ability. He's got the soft hands. He can make one-handed catches with ease. So he's basically not dropping the ball in camp. He's being a freak in the end zone. So I want to see what he can do in the red zone. I want to see what kind of stuff. Well, I don't think we're going to see a lot of him and Ertz on the field at the same time because Doug Peterson, he's not going to want to tip his hand or anything about what he's going to be doing this year. But I want to see him in the red zone. But the other thing that's very important is his blocking. I want to see if there's improvements in his technique in that sense because at North Dakota State, or South Dakota State, I should say. My bad. Sorry, Carson. South Dakota State. At South Dakota State, he'd overwhelm people, but there were some occurrences, when he had to get on the second level, he wasn't balanced, and he didn't always use his hands well. So I want to see that on Thursday. I want to see his blocking improve. All right, my number 3 guy. It's Devontae Bosby. I'm hearing a lot about this kid. Oldest cornerback on the Eagles roster. Could he be the one to take Patrick Robinson's slot snaps? So obviously we kind of know the story. He's been on a couple different practice squads. This is it for him because he doesn't have any practice squad eligibility remaining. And I've talked extensively, too, even about the slot position all offseason. It's not like playing outside cornerback. It's a different animal. And some of the corners that the Eagles have, it's interesting. Like, do any of these guys really fit the characteristics of a slot cornerback? And that's why I was wondering, all offseason, are they going to divvy up the snaps between a couple guys, corners and safeties? But if Bosby, if he's been taking some snaps in the slot during training camp and the OTAs. He's lightning quick. He's lightning fast. But I got to see him play, and we'll see. So Devontae Bosby, he's getting real hyped up. He's getting hyped up. So we'll see if he can live up to it on Thursday night. Number 4 is Derek Barnett. The reason why I have Derek Barnett is this. So we know that he can bend the edge. We know that he's got that shoulder dip and balance, and they call him Gumby because he can get so far down to the ground. Like when he dips that shoulder, he's almost touching the ground. And the balance that he has to be able to come back up and then get after the quarterback when he turns that corner, just the balance is remarkable. But that's his go-to move. What I want to see are secondary moves. And for him to take the next step in the process to becoming a double-digit sack guy, you got to add a second move and a third move. So what are those moves going to be? Is he going to practice some of those things on Thursday night? That's what I want to see. So if he's going to be taking that huge leap, double-digit sacks, that's what some people are thinking Derek Barnett can be this year. I got to see some more moves in the arsenal. Number 5, Donnell Pumphrey. I just talked about him a couple days ago. I don't see how he's going to make the team. There are beat guys saying that he looks good in camp, but I still question whether or not he can actually make people miss in space. A guy that's 5'6", if you want him to be the Darren Sproles replacement, he needs to show more suddenness and elusiveness. See, Darren Sproles, he might be little and small in stature, but he's not small. He's built. And he's not Donnell Pumphrey. They said Donnell Pumphrey added weight this offseason. Still looks like a bug. He's not put together the way Darren Sproles is, you know? Because I had some people in the comments that are like, well, it's pretty obvious that they want him to be Darren Sproles. Well, obviously, they drafted him last year to be Darren Sproles. That's what they wanted. But he's not showing that he can be Darren Sproles. And I need to see this. I need to see the suddenness coming out of your break when you're in the slot. When you're running an angle route. I want to see the suddenness, the quickness. When you're out in the open field against a linebacker, can you make a miss? These are the things that I am not seeing out of Donnell Pumphrey right now that I need to see. And if he does those things, he will make the team, maybe. So we'll see about that. Donnell Pumphrey, my number 5. My number 6 is Matt Pryor. So I'm hearing a lot about him, too. Actually, never mind. My 6 is actually Josh Sweat. I messed up. My 7 is Matt Pryor. So Josh Sweat, they're saying he looks long, he looks smooth, he looks fast in training camp. He and Dallas Goedert, out of all the rookies, look the best. That's what the reports are saying. So Josh Sweat, I want to see it. He might not be a guy that plays a lot this year, but he'll be part of the rotation. And for a guy with a knee history, this is a perfect situation for him to be in. Because his snaps are going to be limited. He doesn't have to play every down. And in the 4 years that he's going to be here in Philly, I think he can create some havoc because of how much depth this defensive line has. You're not going to ask him to play a lot. So those knees could be saved up. And when you really need Josh Sweat to get after the quarterback, he'll be healthy and he'll be ready to go. So the way that they use Josh Sweat is going to be important. And the way that they kind of minimize his snaps. Now, Matt Pryor, talked about him already, so he's my number 7. Here's the interesting thing about Matt Pryor, because, again, here's another guy that they're hyping up. Matt Pryor. So if you remember the Eagles, they drafted 2 guys late along the offensive line. Matt Pryor was one out of TCU. The other, obviously, Jordan Mailata, the rugby player who's never played a down of football. Matt Pryor out of TCU. So TCU product, just like Halapulavati Vaitai. Something about TCU linemen. I guess the Eagles must like them. And Matt Pryor, apparently he looks good. So here's the thing to keep an eye on with him. So if he shows promise, if he shows that he can do something, and you have all of a sudden you have depth along the offensive line. I mean, this is something we saw last year with Howie Roseman. Whenever there was depth out of position, he'd take a guy and he'd trade him for a late round pick. Matt Tobin traded to Seattle. This is something to keep an eye on. I don't think Isaac Seumalo's any good, but maybe somebody would want Isaac Seumalo. Just throwing a scenario out there. And if Matt Pryor looks good and he shows some things, maybe he's the guy that takes over Wiz at guard in a couple years. Some people think he's ready to take over for his spot right now. Let's not go too far. I'm not going too far there. But Matt Pryor, they're saying good things about him too. So another one of these camp guys they're hyping up. Number 8 is Shelton Gibson. He made the team last year. He basically made the team because he got drafted by the team. He probably shouldn't have made the team, but he made it. He's a go route guy. He's a deep guy. And he struggled last year. He just didn't really cause separation. He's supposed to be a go route guy, and I wasn't seeing him create anything. So what's he got in his second season? Because I think it's going to come down to him and like Marcus Wheaton and Kamar Aiken for that 6th and final spot on the roster when it comes to the wide receivers. So Shelton Gibson, what you got? Did you improve over the offseason? Can you create more separation on your go route? That's what I want to see in the preseason from Shelton Gibson. My number 9 is Nate Jerry. Nate Jerry is actually a sleeper on this roster. I think he's probably the guy that's been most forgotten about. I'm trying to think of if there's anybody else that's more really forgotten about than him. Now, he only played last year basically in week 17, and he actually could be in the mix for the linebacker spot. So and that's that weak side spot where you'd only see about 40% of the snaps. So while I think it's going to go to Corey Nelson, you got him, you got Kamagrugier Hill, and Corey Nelson, obviously. So kind of 3 guys fighting for that. Nate Jerry, the former safety, obviously has some coverage skills at linebacker. So there you go. So that's my number 9, Nate Jerry. And I expect him to, I did like the pick coming out. So I want to see some things. I think we will see some things from Nate Jerry. So finally, one last guy, and it's Jordan Mailata. Obviously, we're not going to expect much from him because this is the first football game he's ever going to play. But I just want to see if there's anything there with his technique, if they've already kind of brought him along a little bit. I just want to see him throw him into the fire, and let's see what he's got. So there you go. All right, those are my 10 names. Thursday night, week 1 of the preseason. Actually, I think it's week 2 because technically the Hall of Fame game was week 1. So week 2 of the preseason. Eagles are going to play the Steelers, and I'm excited. I'm pumped. Football's back. It's back. It's here. There you go. So I'm Adrian Fedkiw. I'm out of here. Take care.